rot is this constant negotiation between the states of living and dying. It's neither one or the other, but rather an interpolation between these states. The sculpture is about the blending, the differentiation between a human or a tree or insect or a microbe, and how that all kind of blurs throughout the process of decay. I'm Andrea Ling. I'm an architect and an installation artist, and I work in the field of biodesign. I think when you're working with living organisms, you don't have the same level of standardization or predictability in the result. The idea is that a work is never static, and so kind of contrary to the traditional architectural practices that I was taught about trying to maintain sameness, you're figuring out parameters for something to grow, but because you don't have absolute control over everything, you don't necessarily know what you're going to get.
So this year's Rhubarb Festival was conceived as a strategy for responsiveness, where we would create an installation through Andrea's design practice, and the artist would create a work or a performance or a project that would respond to it, either in the kind of physical presence of the objects or in the kind of thematics of decay and regeneration.
Calculus of an Infinite Rot, Part 1. This is kind of the largest scale work I've tried with living organisms. Most of the time I spend working in a wet lab under extremely controlled conditions, presenting them in the theatrical context. We've let them incubate in normal ambient conditions, and so different things have taken over. The majority of my work depends on time as a critical parameter. It takes time for the processes of decay and regeneration to occur. The idea is that these things will continue to decay for several years after the festival is over.
The element of time is a kind of critical part of this installation, and so much of the festival model is bounded by 5 days or 10 days. And to really be able to kind of conceptually break those barriers down, to think of this installation beyond the kind of time frame of the festival is really useful in unlocking what change can actually look like.
It's quite smelly. Installing it was very leaky. It's super messy. There's spores. And so there is like this critical yuck factor. Yeah, decay is coupled with regeneration. You have to have something to die in order for other things to grow from it. A lot of it was about how to regenerate practice, especially theater practice, after 2 years of not being able to have live audiences. This is an extremely visceral experience, and that there is like a physical response that you can't get on the internet.
We've been outside of the theater space for so many years, and what does the return look like? There's so much conversation around transformation. So many of us are unable or unwilling to kind of confront the discomfort that comes with that. In this kind of moment of gathering that the Rhubarb Festival allows for, to simultaneously celebrate the return, but also to foreground the discomfort and foreground the decay that we've experienced over the past 2 years.
This is very much in the practice of kind of ecocentric design practices rather than human-centric ones. For me, I find human-centric design highly problematic because by making all of these human pain points disappear, like everything is so convenient, the expense of it has been careless disregard for anything non-human. Like by shifting this, so much of the installation and the preparation was spent to care for these organisms, to incubate them, to kind of manage the conditions that they live in and make sure they are happy and humid and warm. I think the idea of humans having to take care of the organisms rather than exploit them is pretty central to the work. So I would hope that audiences could reconsider when they decenter the human from our systems of production or design, to understand that we exist in this extremely complex network of infinite organisms and all these processes, and so we're part of this thing, and just to consider that when they go about buying, consuming, living.